Welcome, everyone, to Zohar Teaching. I'm Dr. Connie Williams, and with me today is Tracy Times, and we are going to continue our study in the Zohar, and we will be beginning with note 130 in the Pritzker edition of the Zohar, Volume 1. And I just want to give a shout out to all of you that have liked the video, that have to subscribe to the channel. That really helps us out, and hopefully you have enjoyed the journey thus far. So let us get started. And I have it highlighted here where we begin. Otherwise, I would never remember. And it says, when Eber was inscribed in the word bara. I'm going to stop right here at this comma. For those of you that are not that familiar with the Hebrew language, I do teach Hebrew at our seminary. And in the Hebrew language, basically, there are no vowels in the original. And there is a system in where you can exchange letters, so to speak. And that is what's happening here. If you look at the Hebrew word and the Hebrew word ever and the Hebrew word bara, you see that we are using the very same letters. The aleph is just switched around, which is very common in any of the literature of the Torah, whether that's Midrash, Talmud, or what have you. So we will see that quite often. In other words, we can see ever in bara. All right, moving on. The supernal concealed one inscribed another inscription for its glorious name. This is Ele. Mi vera Ele. Who created these? And that comes out of Isaiah 40 and 26. Let's click on the note. And our note says, Mi vera Ele bina, known as me, who, see above, blah, 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 emanated Ele, these, the lower Sephirot. And we have already, in the beginning started on me, who is bina, ma is chokhmah, and now we have these. These are all your various pronouns that are now being divided up into the Sephirot. In other words, when you see who in the scripture or these, on the So'ot level, we can inscribe or we can prescribe who to bina. Or when it says these, we can prescribe the Sephirot to that word, depending on context, of course. So these is another name for the lower Sephirot. And then it says the transition from me to Ele corresponds to the transposition of bara into eber. Any questions, any comments, Tracy?
I was just looking at the work of the letters being adjusted, although we can have the same three letters, but how the moving a letter to a different place within a word brings the whole different meaning and to the description of what the author is saying. That's
Yes.
It seems simple, but it's very clever.
It is very clever. And we have to remember that the Zohar was written in what the rabbis call Mishnaic Aramaic. So it's not even real Aramaic, but it's Mishnaic Aramaic. So they wrote it in such a way that they wouldn't be found out, because during that time, there were a lot of things going on that could put them in danger. And so these texts were basically crypted, coded, you can say. And by the way, the word ever is the word for servant. And if we think about me being Bina and Ever, the servant, and LA, these, it makes sense,
Mhm.
because the lower Sephirot are the servants of who and Ma, what?
Mhm.
And so that's kind of how they think. And from when you are born and raised and educated in the Western world, it takes a while to begin to think the way that the authors thought, or we can say the sages were thinking, and how they were thinking about the Word of God. Too often we put culture, our own culture's perspective into
Mhm.
the text, and it's quite a feat, trying to change that.
Yeah, I also initially I was thinking with the letters being, just like in these two words, Ever and Bara, I was thinking, is there a shortage of letters why they work with the three and kind of adjusted it that way? But at the
No,
same time,
it's not a shortage. We see
hmm
they can't change the Torah text.
hmm
So when we see in the beginning Bereshit bara, they look at bara and they say, "Oh, Ever is in here too."
got you, because it's inscribed in the word
It's
bara.
inscribed in the word. It's
Got you,
in
got you.
there. They
hmm
weren't trying to change it, or they can't
hmm
change it. That's a no-no to change words of Torah. But if we look at the text, if we gaze into the text, we can see what else may be in there.
Got you. Yeah, that
That's
is
why
encrypted.
it is cryptic, most certainly. And, I always say, that's why Hashem had to keep the Torah with himself for 2,000 years. He had to play with it so that us humans would misconstrue it when we get the wisdom on how to draw out other words or other meanings within the text. So, it had to stay with Hashem for a little while so we couldn't
Yeah,
mess it up.
yes.
You had to make sure that we
Understood.
wouldn't, because we will if you give us a chance.
Mhm. Well, it definitely with the passion igniting to know the higher wisdoms of God, and getting to the point of understanding that the letters are formed a certain way, even with that part being inscribed in it, we would we would definitely have to have like a taste of some enlightenment to keep pushing into such a thing, because I'm
Yes,
thinking even to study what we would have to understand that part, one word being inscribed into another word, just further in the search.
exactly. And that's
Hmm
why it's not the easiest thing to understand, what is being said
Yeah.
in the Zohar, which was done on purpose. But, we're living in a time now where uh, uh, the meanings are revealed to a greater audience than just the little audience at the time of its writing and before. Because
hmm
before it was only taught from master teacher to master student. And it was a one-on-one type of thing. It wasn't like in a whole classroom. And here we are on YouTube. God knows how many people um, are eventually watching the video to learn. But it has been prophesied that the day would come that the Kabbalah would be taught to 5 and 6 year olds,
Yes.
although we are most certainly not 5 or 6. But it's not just about children, but
hmm
when we think of it in a little bit more metaphorical way, and we say 5 and 6 year olds, then basically it's saying it's not just for the exceptional. It's
Yeah.
also for people that are still learning. Because what I
hmm
have found from my transition from Christianity to whatever it is that I am now, you know, in that transition, I have found that it was much easier for me to understand the Kabbalah the Zohar text than it was, like, for example, the Talmud. Oh my God. Or the Mishnah. I find the Zohar and the Midrash much easier to understand than the Talmud or the Mishnah.
Yeah.
But that might just be me. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, but
I
I
was
think
going to ask you what supports it, your learning. I was going to ask you what part of it concerning the Zohar versus the Talmud makes it easier to grasp.
that's just for me. I'm not sure that it is. That's just my perspective. When I first was given the Bible, I went straight to the book of Revelation, right? That was the easiest book for me to read. The rest was cryptic to me. So that might just be me. I don't know. Because I was not raised in a church. I wasn't raised with the Bible and had all these verses preached to me all my life. I didn't have that. And so as I'm reading through it, that's what made sense to me. And I could deal with it. I couldn't deal with some of the other stuff. To me, that was, plus my language wasn't as wonderful as it is now. Ooh. But like I said, I can't say for sure that that's how it is. That's just how it was for me. So other people may not feel that way.
Understood. Well, Revelation and Genesis is, would you say, like one and the same, the beginning and the end?
No, it's not one and the same. Most
Okay.
certainly not. No,
Okay.
Revelation does not teach creation. The
Okay.
book of
Gotcha.
Revelation teaches end times, as we say.
Hmm.
The book of Genesis teaches us creation. And
Gotcha.
yeah, but we will find some things. And even Daniel Matt every once in a while puts a New Testament scripture in the notes.
Yeah.
Because the authors were Jewish, with the exception, of course, of Luke, who was the scribe of Paul. So we can really say Paul wrote Luke. They were all Jewish with the same Jewish teaching that everybody else had. And so, yeah, every once in a while, Daniel Matt will scoot a few New Testament scriptures in here,
Nice.
in the notes. All right, moving along. Holy concealed one, Ele, exists. Eber exists. As one was completed, so was the other. Now remember, we are talking about the Sephirot. In Eber, it engraved Hey. In Ele, Yod. Letters were aroused to complete one side and the other. It produced two mems, moving one to this side and one to that. The holy name was completed, becoming Elohim. So again, we're still playing with the letters, right? We're using the Hey from Ele. We are using the Yod from the holy name of God. And then they produced mem. Two mems were produced, one to this side and one to that. So we're still playing with that. So Elohim is becoming one, and the other one, the name of Abraham as well. As one was completed, so was the other. I said that. 133. As one was completed, the letters Hey and Mem were added to Ever to complete the name Avraham. The letters Yod and Mem were added to Ele to complete the name Elohim. So we're still playing with letters. When we look at the Sephirot, and as Binah is emanated out of Chokhmah, she then begins to emanate, and she emanates into the world of Yetzirah, the next six. And the Sephirot are always producing. They are always producing something. And here it is said in that case, we're going to produce two mems and a yod. And we're going to add that together, and that will give us the name of Elohim. as well as the name of Avraham. Then life was generated and the complete name emerged, unlike before, as is written. These are the generations of heaven and earth. Behi Baraam. See the Abraham in there already. When they were created, all remained suspended until the name Abraham was created. Until the name of Abraham. See the remark by Rabbi Yehoshua, son of Kocha, in Bereshit Rabbah, referred to above, Behi Baream, which is an anagram of Be'avraham. You know, if you know your Hebrew letters, you can kind of look at that Hebrew word and see Abraham right away in it.
So it sounds like with the name of Elohim and the name of Abraham, along with um, the connections between the two mems, that when something is created, it is created with a portion of the two letters, or the collection of the two forms of words in it, if I'm explaining myself right, to the existence that is created from it.
I'm not
So,
sure that, I think this is something that the Zohar here does.
mhm,
While that is true for the Sefirot, and of course we're talking about Sefirot here because Abraham is the Sefirot of Chesed, which is the next Sefirot being produced out
mhm.
of that. It just so happens that the names coincide by just adding a yod and two mems. And so I'm not sure that we can say that about all the Sefirot, that it works that way. But it is a point here that they are bringing out to show the relationship between, and to prove that for the sake of Abraham, the earth was created, as we discussed, I believe it was last week. So I'm not sure that that is true about all of the Sefirot, because it wasn't true about Chokhmah and Binah.
Okay.
But here it worked, and so it may just be specific to this particular name. We'll have to wait and see. I do not recall that is happening on the lower Sefirot. But there will always be some form of gematria or some form of other meanings being drawn out of the words. Not necessarily, on purpose, but we can see it. We can see that something is happening in there.
Okay, another quick question too. I think about um, previous lecture that I was listening to, and how when it comes to the creation of man, that our personalities and our characters are already chosen before we come to the earth. And so is it the same with the letters as it creates? I know they have a particular power to do a certain thing. That's how
You
it's
mean they
able
have
to
their own
create.
personality, so to speak?
Yes.
Yeah, I suppose we can say that.
Yeah.
I suppose we can say that. When it comes to our personalities, it's my understanding that however we incarnate and however many times we incarnate, our soul doesn't change.
Hmm.
We bring our, profile of our soul with us.
Okay.
It's the circumstances that we are placed in, what family, what kind of life we're going to have, that's going to be different and will, of course, then challenge whatever kind of profile we have.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once that name was completed, the holy name was completed, as the verse concludes, on the day that Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim made earth and heaven. And that's out of Genesis 2 and 4. And the note says, in rabbinic literature, These two names represent respectively the divine qualities of compassion and justice. And we talked about that. The rest is just, yeah, here's another part, a complete name. It is said his complete name would be Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim. Those two aspects of God are uh, are completing his radiance towards mankind, his emanations towards mankind, and this existence, whoever else that may include. It's a big universe. So basically, it is decided through these names how God would rule in this existence, that he would rule with compassion as well as justice. God is the creator of the earth and of the universe, and therefore he can decide how he wants to do that. But he decided, I will rule with compassion, and I will also rule with justice.
It's amazing. Still on the thought of the letters, on how the name of God is established for creation, the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim, with the power throughout time. You know,
Yes.
we reincarnate. We have a previous existence. We have the existence now. For different people, there may be various times that they have reincarnated, and still we live through what God has provided for creation through His name, the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh Elohim. That is amazing.
Yeah, I mean, there are more names of God
Hmm.
that describe his emanations, we can
Yeah.
say,
Hmm.
because God himself, Hashem himself, whoever that may be, whatever that may be, we don't know.
Right.
But I think Hashem wanted to be recognized by mankind. He
Hmm.
makes himself available through
Yes.
his emanations, through the
Hmm.
emanation of compassion as well as justice, so that uh, uh, mankind can recognize, okay, this is God moving. This is his creation. God wanted to be known to his creation, but due to his vastness, uh, he cannot per se just show up as a person, because he's not a person like us. It is said that when if God were to step into this creation, it would completely and utterly destroy this creation because of his immense power and radiance. It is too much. So the Sephirot and the names, they sort of serve as boundaries for creation. We're going to work within this scope. This is how we're going to move throughout, the existence of everything that he has created.
So is it to say that when we look at the tree of life and we look at the Sephirot of, say, Hesed, Geburah, Tiferet, they are um, confined with a portion of what God has emanated as far as, let's say, for instance, Tiferet is the beauty, and the Hesed is the loving kindness, and the Geburah represents the strength and judgment. Those things, those traits that are from God, are really confined within the Sephirot for our use. Is that what you're saying?
They're not confined because they emanate. So we
Hmm.
can't use the term confined,
Okay.
but it is their primary purpose. Let's take, for example, Gevorah. Gevorah, that vessel is primarily, let's say, filled with that part of God's emanations. But not only, it also entails within itself all the others, but to a
Hmm.
lesser degree.
Yes, I got you. Hmm.
And but all of it is emanated. Even in judgment is mercy, and even in judgment is beauty. So it's not confined. It's a vessel. A sephirah is a vessel that holds that emanation and disperses it according to, how much is given and how much is taken. And right now we're talking about creation, so we're talking about the flow from the top to the bottom. But once we get to the point of the bottom, then the flow also goes back up, and so it's more a border, not to extend beyond. It's a vessel; it's holding it, And if you think about a vessel, you know, it's making sure that there's something within the vessel, you know always enough, because if the Sephirot, the emanations, were just all over the place, then they would not be defined and they would not be able to measure out whatever the order is from above to measure out properly, because they would just all flow into each other. But God so carefully constructed these Sephirot so that the measure that comes to us won't kill us. And on the other side, because you can be killed by kindness as well. Either part, either way of the spectrum there can be dangerous if it is too much. So it's a filtering system, you can say.
Yeah.
It's a filtering system in which so many portions are given for creation, and that may vary from day to day. It may vary from year to year, depending on the state of the earth. God gives us quite some input, because when the righteous, when the righteous do their job on the earth, that is reciprocated in the tree of life. And opens the flow of more emanations, positive emanations towards the earth. When the earth is in a state of, wickedness or evil, or whatever term you want to use, then that is more restricted. And that is really discussed in detail in the Zohar, in the Sifra Ditzionita and Idra Rabbah. Because when Sifra Ditzionita is about as for lack of a better term, Godhead, or Arich Pin, whereas Idra Rabbah is about the Partzafim of Seir Anpin. And we have found there that when the earth is in an uproar, with Seir Anpin being the judge and more stringent, that in many cases God can override that, but that's always dependent upon what's going on in creation.
Gotcha.
And so the system is put in place so that existence can survive and flourish, prosper.
And that is the tikkun that we work toward, healing.
Yes. To perfect, not only to perfect, but also to elevate. Even if we get to the point where we do tikkun olam, fix the things that were broken by the broken vessels, there's still ways to go after that, because the original job assignment was, when everything was perfect, was to elevate. So it's not enough just to fix. But after something is fixed, it is supposed to be usable. If we think of an appliance or something like that, let's say we have an appliance that's broken, but we can't use it. We don't just fix the appliance just to fix it and say, hey, it works. We fix it so we can use it and produce and make stuff. And we are supposed to produce as well.
Yes.
The fruit of our labor, so to speak. But before we can really produce good fruit, there has to be a fixing. That's on the micro level as well as on the macro level. You know,
Mhm.
each individual needs to work on their own tikkun. But
Yes.
once we have, you know, somewhat managed that, then we also need to aid in the tikkun of the whole cosmos.
Yes.
And that's really what the Kabbalah is all about. It's not
Mhm.
just to ride the chariot, which is, you know, a lot of people go after that, and that's fine. But it is to elevate not just myself, but to elevate creation itself.
Yes. You said a lot of crucial words, key words. When we were talking about the portion of what tikkun is, so to speak, and reaching toward the tikkun olam. Um, the word repair, the word being able to be used, the word perfection, or just three are the words that we need to modify within ourselves what that means. Because a lot of times, because we are in this dimension, and just by some conversations, a lot of thoughts or that can exist in this dimension. It's as if we have to die out of this world in order to be able to be in that repaired state, or reaching toward that perfected state, or to bring that healing or to be healed ourselves. When in fact the work does begin on this side.
Yeah,
If we,
because it goes a lot
follow
faster on
the
this side than it does
yeah,
on the other, because we
yeah,
have time and they don't, not as we do anyway.
hmm,
So, you know, we are able to accomplish much, much more on Earth in a shorter amount of time than on the other side.
yeah,
Uh, you know, the scripture brings forth a principle, you know, one day with God is as 1,000 years and vice versa.
hmm,
That's a principle. That's not exact numbers, right? Um,
hmm,
but that's a principle. You know, here on Earth, it seems like, whew, been here a long time.
hmm.
Uh, but then when you return to the Olam Haba and you see all the souls there waiting, awaiting you, you know, it's like you've been gone for 5 minutes. But look what I have accomplished throughout my life in
Hmm.
my tikkun and my elevation.
Yes.
That has
Hmm.
not only elevated myself and you know, repaired and elevated myself, but it also has aided in the repairing of the world. You
Yes.
know, oftentimes people say, well, how can we repair the world? It's as bad as it is. Easy. You start with yourself,
Yes.
because you affect everything,
Hmm.
every act,
Absolutely.
every word, every relationship.
Hmm.
And then, you know, as you emanate that towards something or someone else, they in turn do the same.
Hmm.
And so you have your butterfly effect. This is how we
Yes.
fix the world.
Hmm.
We work on ourselves
Yes.
if there's no other opportunity. Now, if God opens up the doors for us to have other opportunity, then by all means, you know, to have that type of privilege. But
Hmm.
if that does not come our way, we always have this temple right here
Yes.
that is, you know, a world unto itself that we can fix
Hmm.
and that we can elevate through Torah
Yes.
by means, in this case, of the Kabbalah. All right, Rabbi Chia prostrated himself on the ground, kissed the dust, and weeping, he cried out, Dust, dust, how stubborn are you? How impudent! All the lights of the eye decay in you. All pillars of light in the world you consume and pulverize. How insolent are you, the holy lamp. Wow. Somebody recognized what the dust really is.
Yes.
I think he had a little bit of a revelation there, right?
Looks like it.
From the dust we come and to the dust we go, right? And so does everything else eventually. All right, let's see what the note has to say. The Holy Lamp, which is Rabbi Shimeon, who had recently died. And so, in the dust, Rabbi Shimeon, okay, it does not want to go back. There must be glitched. Let's go to 35 and then move back down. Oh, by the way, guys, if y'all watch the other videos, I got a new mouse, so I can actually move the page now. Because the last 2 times I've had really troubles moving the page with my mouse. So, but that has been fixed. So, yeah, I find that very interesting here. Rabbi Shimeon has died. Where would you find him? Well, in the dust, right? I mean, his physicality has been consumed by the dust. But that's just half the sentence. It actually goes on. The holy lamp who has illuminated the world, majestic ruler, prince, whose merit sustains the world, decays in you. O Rabbi Shimeon, radiance of the lamp, radiance of the world, you decompose in the dust, yet you subsist and guide the world. So, yeah, he is in the dust, like everybody else that has died, right? Nevertheless, his real self is still at work. And the note here says, yet you subsist. The soul of Rabbi Shimeon endures in the Garden of Eden, and his spiritual power still guides the world. So here we are back at the Tikkun Olam. Not only do we affect the world when we are here, present in a physical body on the earth, but even afterwards, our soul still influences what's going on in the world. How does it do that? Well, Rabbi Shimeon supposedly be the original author. We know Moshe de Leon has penned it. It's still going on, right? And even if he is not the original author, his name is being mentioned so often. His teaching is continuously being taught all over the world and still influencing the earth. It's not necessarily that he's somewhere in heaven beaming down stuff, but what he left behind. I think in today's world, we say he left a legacy behind that still influences the world. Some people die and are forgotten. No one remembers them. And over time, that may be true for most of us. But Rabbi Shimeon has been 2,000 years, and he is still teaching. He is still transforming souls here on the earth. And he may, in the Garden of Eden, he may still be influencing the world. Because there seems to be in that soul world, it seems to be, they have an affinity towards this world. It is said that this world, Earth, in this instance, that this world is the hardest of them all. It is also said that you can, after you die, you don't necessarily have to reincarnate back into the earth. You can go somewhere else, which I'm doing, by the way. There seems to be, it seems to be like if we could say in heaven, all eyes are on the earth to see what's happening. What are they going to do next? Who on the earth is going to take, the hints that Hashem has left behind, whether it's in his word, whether it's through visions, prayer, whatever. Who's going to take it and take it somewhere? Who's going to use it, make themselves into what the potential that's within them, and then spread it?
Along with what you were just saying, in the book that we're studying with Rabbi Eliyahu, it talks about
Eliyahu.
Eliyahu.
Just in case he listens to this.
Okay. It really goes into um, defining our life and what it is that we should be working on and the things that we should actually be releasing and what that looks like. So it gives a really good description on for those of us that are working to build our life in holiness, that it defines how we should be working in compassion without considering ourselves, how we should be pressing into the light, how we should even find pleasure in pressing into the light, revealing and allowing the light to radiate in our lives, so to speak. And that's not verbatim, but that's what I got from it. But there is an outline of specific things to be able to not only share the word with people and what we're studying, but let it be a visual for people, because it also speaks volume to say not only are we studying the word, but we are living it. It has to be our walk like Messiah, our light like Messiah. It has to be those things which makes our lives or our life as a witness. It makes us the witness to the world, and then people become interested, to see that we are not just trying to read and hold knowledge, but this is our existence, and working toward the higher things.
That's a very good point because, a lot of people want to study the Zohar because it is cryptic, and I think humankind has this thing where there's a puzzle, there's a secret. What? I need to find out what it is. So we kind of drawn to it because of that. But you're right. After you have decoded the text, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to literally make it a part of you?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to practice what it teaches you outside
Yes.
of the obvious, which is your literal level of Torah, the things that you should and shouldn't do?
Mm-hmm.
But are you going to practice what the Zohar will disclose to you so that you can become a true aid or fixer of the world?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Very good. For a moment he was shocked and then exclaimed, "Dust, dust, do not boast. The pillars of the world will not be surrendered to you. Rabbi Shimeon has not decayed in you." All right, let's see what the note said. Has not decayed. The bodies of the righteous do not decay. Oh, okay. I wonder what is meant by that. And they could be talking about the the valley of the dry bones, basically, that they will be resuscitated. But if we dig up somebody's grave, more than likely the flesh will have gone to the dust. Still weeping, Rabbi Chia rose and walked on together with Rabbi Yosei. From that day on, he fasted 40 days to envision Rabbi Shimeon. It's a long time to be fasting. 139. That's a long note here. And he fasted 40 days to envision Rabbi Shimeon. The Reish Lakish, according to another version, Rabbi Yehoshua, son of Levi, was longing to see Rabbi Chia Rabbah in a dream. He was told, "You are not worthy." "Why?" he asked. "Didn't I study Torah as he did?" They replied, "You did not teach Torah as he did. And not only that, he exiled himself, wandering for the sake of Torah." He said to them, "Didn't I exile myself?" And they replied, "You exiled yourself to learn." He exiled himself to teach. He sat for 300 fasts, and then he, Rabbi Chia, appeared to him in a dream, saying, "If someone is a nobody, but speaks of himself as though he were somebody, better for him if he had never been created." Rabbi Asi fasted for 39 days to envision Rabbi Chia, Rabbah, but did not see him. He was told, "You are not worthy." He said to them, show him to me, and let happen what happens." He saw his steps the steps of Rabbi Chia's throne in heaven, and his eyes grew dim. In the Zohar, Rabbi Chia is no longer the saint whose appearance is sought by fasting, but rather the devotee who seeks. Rabbi Shimeon, who has replaced him as the spiritual hero, welcomes him to heaven. On Mount Sinai, Moses fasted for 40 days, according to Rabbi Tanhum, son of Hanilai. Solomon did the same, so that God would give him a spirit of wisdom and understanding. See the Babylonian Talmud, blah, 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 where Rabbi Yosef is said to have fasted 40 fasts, then 40 more, then 40 more, in order to ensure that Torah not depart from him. On the following page, we read of Rabbi Chia's glorious state in heaven, a passage that influences the Zohar's description here of Rabbi Shimeon and Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Chaviva said, Rabbi Chaviva, son of Surmaki, told me, I saw one of the rabbis whom Elijah used to frequent. In the morning, his eyes were lovely, but in the evening, they looked as if they had been burned by fire. I asked him, what is this? He told me that he had asked Elijah. Oops, what happened? My page just jumped. Okay. What is this? He told me that he had asked Elijah, show me the departed rabbis as they ascend to the heavenly academy. He, Elijah, replied, you can gaze at all of them except for the carriage of Rabbi Chia, at which you cannot gaze. What is their sign? How can I distinguish between them? All are accompanied by angels as they ascend and descend, except for Rabbi Chia's carriage, which ascends and descends on its own. Unable to restrain himself, I gazed at it. 2 sparks of fire shot forth and struck the man, i.e. me, blinding him. The next day I went and prostrated myself upon his, Rabbi Chia's, grave, crying, your Mishnah is my Mishnah, and I was healed. On the special relationship between Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Shimeon, see the Zohar, blah, blah, blah. On weeping as a technique for attaining a vision, see Idel, Kabbalah New Perspectives. So these are things that you can check out. So there are very, very many fascinating stories within the Zohar that are said to have happened. Obviously, Rabbi Chia's Chia was the forerunner, so to speak, of Rabbi Shimeon. And I don't know why they really, that kind of fasting is a pet peeve of mine. Okay, so I'm just going to say that up front. There was a certain rabbi when he was asked about fasting that replied, he said, stop worrying about fasting, because when you're fasting, all you do is think about eating, and you can't think about praying, and you can't think about meditating, because all you're thinking about is when can I eat? And not only do you destroy your prayer life and whatever other spiritual techniques that you have, you're also destroying the body. I'm with that rabbi, okay? And I know everybody is not like that. But I don't think that you will find myself fasting for 40 days in this lifetime. But it does show that their heart's desire really was to be in the presence of the great ones. They obviously have had a taste of their Mishnah, their teachings. That's what Mishnah really means, oral Torah or teaching. So it is perfect. It is good to study, but it's better to teach. That's another point in this story, because when you study to learn, you're keeping it to yourself, which everybody goes by that route, right? Obviously, you have to learn first. But once you have learned, it's time to share. And I find often that, or I should say in the past, I found often that it was not shared, that it was like a little elite club, that they were the only ones that were allowed, um, you know, to gain some of the deeper teachings. And I understand that we have to be careful of how we teach the Kabbalah, um, so that the novice doesn't take that information and, creates havoc on the earth in their own lives and possibly even other people. However, when one walks in wisdom, that person will know how to teach, when, who, and where to teach, especially if we are saying someone has learned. So, but I do find it very fascinating that many of all these guys are rabbis here, these 10 companions, every one of them. And yet they still had people around that they considered greater than themselves, which is also something that you don't find a lot of in some circles. So it is important uh, uh, to have before you always somewhere else that you can go to,
I want to add a
something
point to that.
else that you can partake in.
Hmm.
You're never done learning, never.
Yeah. I was just thinking, Dr. Connie, when you were, expressing how important it is to not just learn, but to share. It has so many benefits. Of course, with the discernment on what you're sharing and who you're sharing it with. But people have a tendency of opening your mind when you're sharing, with questions about things or experiences or what they've learned and, different things like that. And then it also helps the teacher to make sure that they don't become settled within themselves on a conclusion, because then it makes it hard to, to share, for them to receive information or pursue higher learning and different things like that. So it's the teaching part is really beneficial to the learner, grasping and learning and embracing what the word has said and what you've learned, and then having a conversation with somebody that thinks different from you or have a different experience or may have heard something else, things of that nature that makes you think and then will make you go further and then asking them to share, you know, their findings, which could give an opportunity to research and have a greater understanding, find it to be true, find it to be I don't know, or find it not, you know.
Yeah, and also as we teach, you never know who you're teaching, who the next master is, because you're not going to live forever in this state, and somebody should come after you, right? That's also leaving a legacy behind. And so I find it fascinating, what they will do to get a glimpse of a certain rabbi or Elijah, or the chariot. I find it amazing. They literally pine for it, with everything that they have within them. To them nothing matters but to get more of what God has really provided for us. All right, let's move on. He was told, you are not entitled. Did I? No, I haven't read that yet. It's being told again, I suppose. He was told, you are not entitled to see him. He wept and fasted another 40 days. In the vision, he was shown Rabbi Shimeon and his son, Rabbi Eliezer, studying the word that Rabbi Yosef had spoken. And we have a comma here as well as a note. The word that Rabbi Yosef had spoken. Rabbi Yosef had transmitted a teaching of Rabbi Shimeon's concerning Bereshit Rabbah. That was 40, right? Yeah. Rabbi Yosef had spoken with thousands listening. Meanwhile, he noticed many huge celestial wings, wings of angels or winged beings. Yeah, we got that. That part we got. Which Rabbi Shimeon and his son Rabbi Eliezer mounted, and they soared to the academy of heaven. All those wings waited for them. He saw them returning, their splendor renewed, and they shone more brilliant than the dazzle of the sun. Rabbi Shimeon opened, saying, "Let Rabbi Chia enter and see how the Blessed Holy One intends to rejuvenate the faces of the righteous in the time to come." So here's another reference to what we were speaking of earlier, when they were saying, the righteous don't decay. They will be rejuvenated. 142, rejuvenate the faces. Rabbi Yirmiyah, son of Rabbi Eliezer, said, "In the time to come, the Blessed Holy One will rejuvenate the light on the faces of the righteous, as is said. But may those that love him be as the sun, going forth in its might." Judges 5 and 31. Which note was that? Was that 43? No. No, we didn't read that. That was not celestial wings. So it was 42.
42, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Happy is one who enters here without shame. Happy is one who stands in that world as a sturdy pillar. 143. In that world, meaning this world, earth. Rabbi Chia saw himself entering. Rabbi Eliezer rose together with the other pillars sitting there. And by the way, the pillars is a reference to these great ones, right? Embarrassed, he drew back, then entered and sat at the feet of Rabbi Shimeon. Now, mind you, Rabbi Chia was the hero of the time. And now, since Rabbi Shimeon arrived in the heavenly academy, Rabbi Chia now enters and is embarrassed and bows to Rabbi Eliezer. Basically, every teacher's goal should be to raise up a disciple that at least one, possibly more, but at least one, that will become greater than themselves. That's kind of what we're seeing here. A voice issued, "Lower your eyes, do not raise your head, do not gaze." Lowering his eyes, he saw a light shining in the distance. The voice returned, "O high hidden concealed ones, open-eyed, roaming the entire world, gaze and see." O high hidden concealed ones, referring to the angels or perhaps the souls of the righteous. Well, what do you think? Is it the angels or is it the righteous?
Well, could the righteous gain wings? Could they be winged creatures when they leave this
According to
dimension?
Rabbi Eliyahu, yes. We know that Enoch became Metatron, so there's
Yes.
certainly that possibility. I think, why not?
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, winged beings is just, they are obviously celestial beings that have the ability to move
Mm-hmm.
throughout realms. That's what the wings represent. Because if you were to actually see them, let's say in a meditation, you probably wouldn't see any wings.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's just the language that we use to identify, okay, that's somebody that's moving in the spiritual world. And I think, as our soul grows, depending on which heaven we end up in, the question then is, are you confined to that heaven?
Mm-hmm.
Or do
Yeah.
you have the ability to move between the heavens?
Yeah.
And I suppose those that have reached the highest heaven have the ability to move about. So, like Daniel Matt said, could be either, could be both. Some of these things, some of these things cannot be said to be exact. Or we can say that's what it is, or that's what it is. These are things that need to be found out. These are things that need to be experienced. If this thing would puzzle someone and say, well, I want to know, well, get yourself together and, work on your meditations, and who knows? You might get to experience that and see that for yourself. Oh, lo, sleeping ones, closed-eyed, awake. Oh boy, that doesn't sound too good, does it? 145, human beings. Closed-eyed, sleeping ones. We think we woke, but obviously, from their perspective, we are closed-eyed, and that's true. From one perspective, our eyes are closed. Even though my eyes are open right now, but I can't look around and just casually see into other realms. Now I can put myself in a place where I can do that, but in my everyday life, moving on about, um, most of the time, no. And that's not negating, God showing up or sending an angel, and all of a sudden you do see something. But it's not our everyday state to see into the spiritual realms. We could possibly be in that state for most of our waking life. But
Well, that's obvious.
right now, huh?
I was just saying that's obvious because we are aware that we can't see. we
Yeah. And sometimes we do see, but
Yeah.
it's not on a continuous basis. So therefore, we can say that humanity, for the most part, is asleep and closed-eyed, yet awake, or we think we awake. Because the alarm clock woke us up, right?
Right.
I woke up and looked at the clock and I thought, oh my God, and I got to stay here an hour longer, or my whole day is going to be messed up. Who among you turns darkness into light, bitter into sweet before arriving here? Ooh, maybe that's what we're supposed to do before we arrive there, right? 146, darkness by acting righteously on earth. I like the way they put that. Who among you turns darkness into light and bitter into sweet? So here we see another purpose of humankind. We are supposed to change things for the better, preferably. But oftentimes that may not be the case. Who among you awaits each day the light that shines when the king visits the doe? Visits the doe, joins Shekhinah, and redeems her from exile. The Zohar identifies Shekhinah with the doe of love, according to Proverbs 5:19, and the doe of dawn in Psalms 22 and 1. Poor Shekhinah, she's here with us, but obviously she likes it because she's still here. I'm sure if she said, hey, I want to come home, that would be granted to her. But yeah. Where's my note? Oh, here it is. Who among you awaits each day the light that shines when the king visits the doe? Wonder what time that is. Or are we speaking about a time that is yet to come? Probably
Well, I
yet
was
to come.
thinking
Hmm?
maybe like the book of Genesis talks about there being the cool of the day or the most spiritual time of the day may be ideal.
Well, that's before the fall, though.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
I'm just really messing with the audience. when I say that. But the sentence goes on. When the king visits the dough and is glorified, declared king of all kings of the world, whoever does not await this each day in that world has no portion here. My note has skipped again. Whoever does not wait. Rava said, when the human is led in for judgment, he is asked, were you honest in your business dealings? Did you set aside time for Torah? Did you generate new life? Did you await salvation? And did you engage in the dialectics of wisdom? Did you understand one thing from another? All right, I'm trying to find my note again. We got a split in a page here. That's what's going on. That was 58, right? No, that was 56. No? No? Where is it? That wasn't right. 48? Yeah, 48. That's where we were. Sorry. I'm really bad at that with losing my spot. So in other words, those questions that are being asked when the day comes, what have you accomplished? Have you reached your full potential? Did you do these things? Have you acquired any wisdom? Did you get any better than when you left here? It's like saying every day that should be on my mind, and every day that should be my goal. And as it is stressed here, the people that don't do that have no portion here. And of course that's not to put anybody in hell or whatever, but it's basically saying, you can't sit with the big guys. You can't, because now you will have to go back and do it until you actually have learned something, until actually you have gained some wisdom and made a difference in this world, so that you can take your place. But it's hard sometimes for people to grasp that, because where we come from, those things are not discussed. That something awaits us other than heaven or hell. That is discussed constantly.
Very true.
But when you read the Zohar, or even in the Midrash, the things that they talk about, the activities in the heavens, or the heavenly academy, or the Garden of Eden, the activities, no wonder they are so thirsty, to go over that. Where we come from, we're just trying to get there. We don't care if we get anything. Who Hag made it? That's the idea. That's the mindset. Let me just make it in. But that's not really the goal. The goal is not just to make it in. We have a big part in the whole scheme of creation to play, whether we are on earth or whether we are in the Olam Haba. There is purpose in everything. And, to grasp that in some communities, that's a feat right there. That's quite a challenge to make people understand. But of course, on the other hand, if you were coaxed into the relationship with God about escaping hell, then and you compare the two, then maybe all you do care about is, I just don't want to go to hell, But if we take that hell concept, kind of put that to the side a little bit there, and teach people that you are important. God sent you here, and that makes you important, an integral part of creation. You have a job to do, a job that's not only necessary, but a job that is a job that is that gives inspiration to heaven. The people in heaven looking down, watching these things come to pass. Of course, they see more than we do, and sometimes we accomplish things and we're not even aware of it. Thank God. Our very existence should be filled with the thought, why am I here? And
Yes.
what do I need to do in order to make this place a better place? And if that means fix me, then by
Hmm.
all means, let me start working on that. Let me lay before Hashem and ask him to help me to point out the things that I need to fix within myself.
Yes.
As it was stated before, because most of us are blind, closed-eyed
Yeah.
towards the things that are lacking within us. If we're not starving and uh, got a bunch of kids running around or whatever, then a lot of people are just okay with that. And if that
Hmm.
is their portion, then I suppose that's okay for that. But I can't imagine that there's one person on this earth that doesn't have a higher calling, something specific that they
Hmm.
are supposed to do in this world. And, the Zohar basically saying, hey, every day you need to think about that. It needs to be your goal, it needs to be your desire
Hmm.
to make a difference, to accomplish things,
Yeah.
so that ultimately we can see the redemption. We can see the release of the dough that is still in exile.
Hmm. Absolutely. That definitely goes with some of the beginning parts of our conversation in the lesson about what we're coming after and what it means to be holy and what that, defining work that we need to, um, begin to develop in ourselves, look at ourselves when it comes to the correction, the shaping, the prayers, taking advantage of all of the things that God has given us to allow us to work off the things that are not of his image and work and press into it, the things that are. So, a lot of things that some people believe that could be inherited once we leave this earth starts on its side. It starts on its side. And I
Yeah.
remember Rabbi Eliyahu, if I'm saying this correctly,
Yeah.
when he presented the lesson to the class a couple of weeks ago, and he made the statement how irrelevant it was, the statement of being so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good just didn't make any sense. and and I know that really is for people. It and defining it can go multiple ways, but when a person is trying, even when they're not succeeding, at least the intent is there. Let God find them where they are, and it doesn't have to fit somebody else's definition, but the goal is to press into be heavenly minded, so we can allow it to emanate into this world and make a difference.
Yes.
Hmm.
Very good. Meanwhile, he noticed many of the companions surrounding him, all those erect pillars, and he saw them being raised to the academy of heaven, some ascending, some descending. Let's see what that means. 149. See the passage from the Babylonian Talmud. Again, what is said in rabbinic literature about Rabbi Chia is transferred here to Rabbi Shimeon. All right. Above them all, he saw the master of wings. The master of wings. And here we have an Aramaic word, which I do not speak Aramaic. It sounds Spanish to me. Apparently, Metatron, the chief angel. Makes sense to me. In both of which, the corresponding Hebrew expressions mean simply a winged creature, a bird. In the Babylonian Talmud, where the title is applied to Elijah, who wore tefillin despite a Roman prohibition. Elsewhere in the Zohar, the expression means simply angel. At times, above or wings itself can also mean angels. So the master of wings would be the chief angels. And Metatron, of course, is often associated with the heavenly academy. A little bit further down in the Targum Kohelet, Elijah is identified as master of wings. A little bit further on, it says in the Babylonian Talmud is a passage which influences the Zohar here. He, Rabbi Chia, Chaviva, asked Elijah, show me the departed rabbis as they ascend to the heavenly academy. So I guess you can pick and choose here. Who is it, right? Who is this winged master? I kind of like Metatron myself. But it could be Elijah. You know, who knows? Let's see what this winged master is going to do. Well, besides approaching. When he arrived, he solemnly swore that he had heard from behind the curtain. 151, behind the curtain concealing God from the world. And okay, behind the curtain. So that is someone who has the place of Keter. So that statement right here would then directly point to Metatron, who holds the position in Keter. Yeah, I thought from the beginning, sounds like Metatron to me. But nevertheless, Matt gave all the instances, which is appropriate. We need to know them all. But since he's heard from behind the curtain, obviously he was in front of the curtain, that the king remembers the doe who lies in the dust and visits her every day. I'm going back to Watan. At that moment, he kicked the 390 firmaments. 152, he kicks the 390 firmaments. He is one and dwells in 390 firmament. The gematria of Shemayim, heaven, is 390. So here we see another instance of the coding. We could have just simply said, at that moment, he kicked the heavens, or all the heavens, right? But I believe we had that reference several weeks or maybe even months back, where the 390 firmaments were defined as all the heavens, the totality of them. At that moment, he kicked the 390 firmaments, which all tremble and quake before him. He sheds tears over this. He sheds tears over this, over the exile of Shekhinah. Makes sense. He's separated, so he has to always come and visit her. Would be nicer if she was just there all the time. When the Blessed Holy One remembers his children, who are plunged in the suffering among the nations of the world, he sheds 2 tears into the great sea, and his voice resounds from one end to the other world. Wow. And those tears of bubbling fire fall into the vast ocean. From those tears, the prince of the ocean emerges. The prince of the ocean, it's a Leviathan. He was of prominent discussion in our last class in seminary. Where did Leviathan go? I don't know why it skips. I done got a new mouse, so it should not. What number was it? Do you remember? Master of Wings. Okay. What number was that?
Were we on 52?
52. So it skipped a whole page on me here. 52, that was 54. Okay. From those tears, the prince of the ocean emerges. By them he is sustained, and he hallows the name of the Holy King, agreeing to swallow up all those waters of creation, excuse me, and absorb them when all the nations gather against the holy people. To swallow up all the waters. where God commands the prince of the ocean to swallow the chaotic waters of creation. When he refuses, God kicks and slays him. Here, the prince obeys the divine command. On the parallel between the waters and the nations, and then it gives us a bunch of references, which you can look up on your own time. And it skipped again. 50, that was 55. So that the waters will dry up and they will pass through on dry land. And I'm sure that puts us in memory of something that happened, well, not before, but yeah, before, from the companion's perspective, most certainly. 156, pass through on dry land, recalling the crossing of the Red Sea. As in the days when you went forth from the land of Egypt, I will show him wonders. And that's exactly where I was going. So this Leviathan is sustained by two tears when the nations oppress the people of God, one can say. And so this Leviathan becomes a great deal of discussion. Who is the Leviathan? Some say it's the devil. Some say he's a creature waiting for the end times until God gives him, free rein to swallow up everything. Maybe both of these things are true. Nevertheless, I think this is oh yeah, we well over an hour. I think this is a good place to stop. And also wanted to mention that if anybody that is watching this would like to come into the stream and ask questions, I would consider that. So leave me a note below and we can discuss that. And again, thank you all for watching, and hopefully you got something out of the teaching today. If there's any questions that you have, put them in the comments, and I read all the comments and I will try my best to answer them. And I want to thank Tracy for coming back and helping us discuss these things. And until next time, shalom, shalom.
Shalom, shalom.